Give me 1 second. I gotta record.
All right, we are live. All right, guys. Hey, welcome to Hot Topic Tuesday. And we have been talking about all things hormones this month. We started out with gut health. Now we're talking hormones. And last week, if you missed it, we talked about estrogen, just, super fast, the functions, what can go wrong when it's imbalanced. And it makes perfect sense that today we will lead off with talking about progesterone because estrogen and progesterone, the biggest issues with both of those are when they're out of balance with each other. And we, definitely focus on more of the issues that can happen with estrogen. And now we will kind of balance it out by talking about the functions and kind of what can go wrong when progesterone's in balance. And then April's going to take over at the end and she's going to kind of round out our women's health hormones with talking about testosterone and how that's important to women. Men's health is kind of similar, but a little bit of a different topic too. Okay, so last week, if you remember, we talked about estrogen. Estrogen is going to be the more dominant hormone in the first half of our cycle, called the follicular phase, if I can speak today. And progesterone is going to be the more dominant hormone in the luteal part of our phase, which is the second half. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Jay Tita, but I think he just has a really good kind of analogy and way to kind of talk about how estrogen and progesterone balance and complement each other. And he says to think of it as estrogen and progesterone being like twins. They're not identical, but they very much depend on each other. And he kind of goes on to say that estrogen would be like your more dominant twin, like, very brave, energetic, maybe a little bit wild at times. And he kind of talks about progesterone maybe being a little bit more of the quiet twin, the one that comes in to almost tame down estrogen, kind of like, okay, estrogen, you're getting a little crazy here, time to calm things down. And I think that's just a great way to look at it, because that's kind of progesterone's role. If you think about it, if we were to get pregnant during ovulation, then progesterone would kind of come in to support implantation, to support a healthy growing pregnancy. So it makes sense that some of the things we feel when progesterone is more dominant is kind of to, maybe chill out a little bit more. We may not have quite the energy. We may not be as resilient to stress during that time. So some women experience maybe, they don't feel like their training is as good in that time frame. They may feel like they have to kind of step that down a little bit, maybe just do like gentler movements, exercises. Some people don't notice this at all, but some people kind of definitely can feel that. And that would be, just evolutionary. If we were to get pregnant, we would kind of chill out a little bit more. And if not, then you're going to go on and kind of have your period as usual. But so progesterone's role is definitely to kind of support, pregnancy if that happens. But it also is really important for mood. So one thing that like women that have lower progesterone might notice is they may notice that they're more irritable, that they have more mood swings, things like that. So it is good for kind of helping anxiety, helping mood. It helps sleep. One thing that we get all the time when women are kind of getting into more of their PMS time, about to start their period, is they will report more sleep disturbances. So progesterone will definitely kind of help anything kind of calming, sleep, mood, anything like that. One thing that people will notice in perimenopause women is that progesterone will start to decline at a little bit more of a rapid pace than estrogen. And that's kind of how we can get even more out of balance with those two. So yeah, progesterone, super important. You definitely need it to help balance those effects of estrogen, and, mood, irritability, PMS symptoms, all of that. It can definitely, be supportive too, for sure.
So last week we had commented that estrogen was like the confidence hormone. Like, we're known when estrogen in the beginning of our cycle, or when estrogen is higher and progesterone is lower, we tend to be more confident. We tend to spend more money. Um, those, those
Yes.
types of things. And progesterone is kind of labeled as the calming hormone. It's the
Mhm.
calming. We tend to, like what you said, sleep disturbances. We tend to crave carbs. Progesterone will always crave carbs, but at the same token, we are more sensitive to carbs and salt when progesterone is at its highest. So it's like it wants it, like progesterone's like, give me all the carbs, but then our body's like, but I can't really handle it.
Yeah, and body's better at fat oxidation during that time. Yeah.
Exactly.
Even though you're cutting it. Oh, and fluid balance. I did forget to mention that one. So progesterone is responsible for fluid balance. Actually, what will happen when we are kind of in that PMS time, a lot of women will notice like maybe a little bit of a weight dip kind of in maybe that last week, kind of right when their period not is getting ready to start, but maybe like days before that. And then what can happen from there is there's this rebound effect. And then that's when people notice like the PMS weight gain and the bloating and things like that. So progesterone is all about affecting how that fluid balance is in our body. So you may notice a little bit of a dip and then kind of a strong rebound where our body's like then retaining fluid.
Yeah. Okay. So testosterone. Let's talk about testosterone. I'm glad I get the muscly one. I mean, it's just anyway, so testosterone, which it's often associated, a lot of people have the misconception that only men have testosterone, which is not true, but it's often associated with men, but it's also important for women's health, although we just have it in a much, much smaller amount. It's produced in the ovaries and the adrenal glands, and it plays a role in maintaining bone density, building muscle mass, our libido, and just overall energy levels. Some of the symptoms of low testosterone in women can lead to decreased sex drive, fatigue, mood changes, and reduced muscle strength. Some of the imbalances in testosterone levels can occur due to factors such as, like what Trish was saying, such as like menopause, which of course menopause, everything just kind of goes haywire in menopause. Such as menopause, polycystic ovarian syndrome, so PCOS, or adrenal gland disorders. If you're dealing with any type of adrenal gland disorder, granted, because testosterone is produced in the ovaries and adrenal glands, and it makes sense that would be affected. Now, overall, I did want to add, like Trish was saying about, estrogen being, important, and then progesterone being important to kind of balance that. It's funny because a lot of the symptoms cross each other. So let's say, for example, you have you're experiencing an issue with excess estrogen, or not enough estrogen, or not enough progesterone, or your testosterone is low. And this can be, female, male, whatever. It's, just in general. A lot of the symptoms are going to cross over and be the same. So we're going to have irregular menstrual cycles, heavy menstrual bleeding, premenstrual, like PMS is really, really bad. I hear that a lot of like, oh my, I've always had like bad PMS, which is not typically normal. Breast tenderness, fatigue, sleep disturbances, headaches, decreased libido, weight changes. So it's like you can't control your weight, or say have gained like a rapid amount of weight in a short period of time. Mood swings, bloating, hot flashes, and also vaginal dryness. Which nobody wants that. Like, let's get ahead of it. But this is the importance of having balanced hormones. And rather than rather than actually just making the assumption of, and I admit myself, a couple of years ago, I was just convinced, I was 100% convinced that I had an issue with excess estrogen. I had an issue with excess estrogen, and I started taking a couple of supplements to support that. But then later on, I ended up doing a Dutch test, which is a very valuable tool in regards to measuring hormones and finding out exactly what's going on, especially for a menstruating female. But I did a Dutch test, and it was the complete opposite. Like progesterone had tanked, and estrogen was fine. But when you look at the whole scheme of things, like took a step back and looked at the big picture, I was experiencing symptoms of excess estrogen only because it was in excess in ratio to the progesterone. But by normal standards, like the estrogen was in a normal range. It just was exhibiting those symptoms. However, a lot of the same symptoms that I was having, hot flashes, sleep being crappy, um, being bloated. And I would say the biggest issues were probably hot flashes, mood, and sleep disturbances. But a lot of those can, again, the symptoms kind of cross over each other, and a lot of those symptoms stem from, progesterone being too low, so rather than making the assumption, or like in my case, just taking some random supplements thinking that you're solving the problem, I would make the suggestion to test and not guess. So, you
100%. Yeah. I think I would have assumed the same thing though. And we do hear, I think, in social media, or if you're Googling this stuff, you're going to see those like kind of keywords like, estrogen dominance, things like that. And, that can kind of jump out at you when really that's probably not the issue, especially if you're in perimenopause and just kind of going with the fact that progesterone will probably decline a little bit more rapidly than estrogen. Doesn't mean that you've ever had too much of it. You're just at that point, probably do.
Exactly. And that's the thing is that whenever we actually enter menopause, estrogen just starts tanking. And I think a lot of people have the misconception that as we enter into the perimenopause, which perimenopause essentially means before, during, after, like it's just around menopause. But as we enter into those stages, we just automatically assume, it's estrogen, my estrogen's dropping, or, whatever, because that is what happens, whenever we go through menopause. Estrogen kind of plummets, so in turn, it kind of creates that major imbalance. But that's not always the case. So now, that being said, the importance of having balanced hormones, is, as a whole, is crucial for women's health and just overall quality of life. I don't know about y'all, but like I can go from, you know, being calm, cool, and collected to like next level crazy.
And that is what brought me to kind of seek out, like, even starting conversations around HRT. I hadn't had a single hot flash, still haven't. It wasn't situations like that. I was like, something is wrong with my focus, and something is wrong with my irritability doing what you just said. 0 to 100 really fast. So those were my two most major symptoms. Sleep, definitely was hit or miss, but it wasn't the typical that you hear of every day, like the hot flashes and things. That hadn't happened. But if you are really struggling with, feeling like your mood has shifted and changed, or your reactions, or focus, I think focus is a big part of that one too.
Agree. No, totally agree, 100%. And I was actually experiencing the same thing. And I personally think it's just a domino effect. My biggest thing was just the sleep disturbances. The waking up at 1 a.m. and laying there for 3 hours, or not going back to sleep at all. It's hard to stay focused during the day when you're just chronically sleep deprived. So I just
Really
think.
have a shorter fuse.
Exactly. I just think a lot of those things, domino into each other. So some things, some lifestyle factors that we can, focus on. Of course, stress management, regular exercise, adequate sleep, a balanced diet rich in nutrients can help support, overall healthy hormone balance. And also, again, consulting with a professional that, of course, Trish and I are a little bit biased that, we have more of a focus on, functional health, because that can actually provide, personalized guidance and options, compared to back when I was experiencing mine. I went in for my annual physical, and I complained to my doctor, basically told her, I hadn't had a menstrual cycle in it was several months. It was like 10 months, and had these symptoms or whatever. And all she ran was my estrogen, my or estradiol, free testosterone, and my FSH. She ran nothing with progesterone. She didn't run DHEA. She didn't run, like, the DHEA to testosterone conversion is super important. Like, she didn't run the estrogen to progesterone ratio is super, super important. But anyway, long story short, she just ran those minimal markers, and FSH was high, and she just came back and said, "You're in menopause. You're in menopause." And that was it. Explains everything. And then my menstrual cycle came back 2 weeks later with a vengeance.
Oh, I'm
So
sure it did.
basically, my menstrual cycle was like, "Oh, I'm not in menopause yet." So
Yeah. You trying to
anyway,
tell me?
exactly. So anyway, it is moral of the story is, go for, if you have the options, go for a little bit more detailed, testing to know exactly, what the problem is. And then that way you can choose, you can make the choice, you can do, HRTs. And some people are like super pro HRT, and some people are like, oh, I want to try the natural route,
Yep.
and the natural route, a lot of people are successful, in regards to doing that. I will say, I will just add, y'all, this is the last thing before we close. I will say that ever since I have been eating my high protein ice cream, ever since I've been eating my high protein ice cream every night, my hot flashes have disappeared completely.
I think that's probably because, like you said, you would sit down before with like your 7 course sweets. I think that no, it's so good. I love that because that, like you said, you look forward to it. It's good. You get to eat this whole good voluminous amount, which you love. But what is that eliminating on the back end? Like anti-inflammatory sugar.
Exactly. Well, I
Or
was always good.
inflammatory sugar, not anti, but
Yeah, inflammatory. I was actually good before about the sugar, but I think it was just having
yeah.
just higher carbs later in the day. And we all know, circadian rhythm, all that good
Yeah.
stuff, is optimal. Circadian rhythm eating is optimal. But
And
anyway,
you love it, so it helps your mood.
so that, and well, it gives you just something amazing to look forward to every day. And the I switched my magnesium. I changed my magnesium. I changed the After years and years of doing the same magnesium, I switched magnesium, and I don't want to jinx it, but that's made like a massive difference. In my
Is it just the brand you switched, or was it the type?
I switched the type. I completely switched the type after years. I had done natural calm for, gosh, probably 7 or 8 years, and I've never had an issue falling asleep. Like, I can hit the pillow and I'm out in 5 minutes. Like, I've never had an issue. It was just a matter of waking up and
Mm.
then not being able to go back to sleep. So your brain turns on, you think about all the world's problems and how can you solve them and whatever. What outfit are you gonna wear for the
Yeah.
next 17 functions of your life? Whatever. Anyway, but that would be common, and I switched the type of magnesium, and it's made a substantial difference. And if I do wake up to go to the bathroom now, I can go right back to sleep, whereas before I
Yeah.
couldn't. So
Which one is it? Is it citrate, glycinate? Now I'm curious.
I switched to glycinate. Yeah,
That's
yep.
funny you say that because I just got magnesium glycinate and I think I've taken it before and, not always like super compliant. And oh my gosh, like I feel like my sleep is better, but my morning bowel movements, amazing, like next level.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Even
mean,
after, all the other changes and stuff I was doing and probiotics and
yeah,
stuff, this seemed to improve them
it's
in a good way.
and
Not
it's
too like overstimulating, like how some of those can be, but not like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Hey, improved poop is always going to,
Yeah,
is always going to increase quality of life. So I'm all for that. But
yeah, that and sleep. And
all
balance.
right. Well, that is it for the day. I hope y'all have a great week. And don't forget the tip that I gave in the newsletter this week of, if you wait until after Valentine's Day, you can get all the clearance chocolate. I'm just saying. That's that's that's
Good
that's
one.
that's a pro tip. I'm just saying. Anyway, y'all have a great week, and reach out if y'all have a topic y'all want us to discuss, and we'll see y'all next week.